A federal judge is ramping up demands for the Trump administration to bring a Maryland man mistakenly deported back to the United States. U.S. District Attorney Paul Lazinas says every day Kilmar Abrego Garcia remains behind bars in El Salvador will cause irreparable harm. Abrego Garcia's wife, Jennifer Vasquez-Sura, says she will not give up the fight.
I will not stop fighting until I see my husband alive. I find myself pleading with the Trump administration and the Bukele administration to stop playing political games with the life of Kilmar. Kilmar needs to come home, and it's time we see how exact this will be fulfilled. Enough is enough.
I want to bring in CBS News legal reporter Katrina Kaufman, who's also an attorney. Good to see you. All right, so where are we with this case? What happened yesterday?
So yesterday there was this hearing, and Vlad, the judge made it clear that she is not satisfied with the government's actions, or really lack of action, to bring back Mr. Abrego Garcia. She has now ordered discovery, and she says that there can be depositions of ICE officials, of government officials. She told the lawyers for the government to cancel any vacations that they have because she wants this dealt with expeditiously, and she has set a timeline. But in the meantime, Mr. Abrego Garcia is still in this prison in El Salvador.
So it does feel as if the Trump administration is thumbing in her nose at the judiciary, and partly, according to some of the reporting, it's because he just loves seeing liberals and the opposition up in arms and loves seeing the media up in arms about this. The question is, will this judge or any judge hold anyone accountable for not complying with her orders?
Vlad, she did mention the possibility of sanctions if they don't comply with her orders, and there could be the possibility of contempt proceedings. Another thing that she said yesterday is that the way the Trump administration is interpreting the Supreme Court's ruling, saying that they are going to facilitate Mr. Abrego Garcia's return, they will allow him to come into the country if he comes to a port, that's just a fallacy, that definition of facilitate. But I do want to mention something that I was reading about, which is there's a case from back in 2018, that's during Trump's first administration, of an Iraqi man who was mistakenly deported. He was supposed to be protected by a court order, Vlad. The government recognized it had made a mistake, but in that case, when a federal judge said that ICE had to go to great lengths to find him, they did. They called the State Department in Iraq. They called countries that he had gone through. They worked with his attorneys to bring him back to the United States, and he ultimately did return.
So it is doable. So Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen, he's been highly critical of the Trump administration, obviously, and he says he is traveling to El Salvador today to push for Abrego Garcia's return. And we want to play for our viewers what he had to say before he boarded his flight.
My overall purpose here is to send a signal that we are not going to stop fighting for his return until he is actually released. I may be the first senator or first member of Congress to go down to El Salvador, but people are going to keep on coming until he comes home.
He also said it's about following the rule of law. What happens? I mean, it would be easy for El Salvador just simply to release him from this prison, this ghoulish prison that he's been placed in, and let him facilitate his return to the United States, buy a ticket, get on a plane, and come back to the U.S. It doesn't have to be that difficult. So the president is continuing to thumb his nose at the judiciary. I guess what happens next?
I mean, this is the question. We have to see whether they comply with the judge's orders this time. She does not feel that they have been complying so far. She had previously said that they had to be taking steps to bring Mr. Abrego Garcia home. But to what you said, we all saw that meeting with President Trump and President Bukele on Monday, where President Bukele said he couldn't smuggle a terrorist back into the United States. He didn't make any indication that he was going to free him from that prison. But yes, a judge could put pressure. They could potentially try to say that the government shouldn't be paying El Salvador this money, because we are paying for Mr. Abrego Garcia and these other men to be in that CCOT prison. So we could see potential sanctions, contempt proceedings. People could be held responsible for this by the courts.
All right, we'll be watching. Katrina, thank you very much, as always. Appreciate it. Judge Zenas also had some harsh words for the Trump administration, saying, quote, there will be no tolerance for gamesmanship or grandstanding in the Abrego Garcia case. White House reporter Aaron Navarro joins us now to talk more about this. So how is the White House responding to the judge's comments, Aaron?
For the Department of Justice have signaled that they will cooperate with this sort of expedited discovery period. What we've seen from the White House is kind of talking about everything but what the judge said in regards to Abrego Garcia's case. You saw Vice President Vance put out a lot of posts on X this morning defending the administration's immigration policies, this sort of lack of due process applied to some of these migrants, and criticize the immigration policies under President Biden. In regards to what the DOJ has said, a lawyer said yesterday the administration would facilitate Abrego Garcia's return if he arrived at a port of entry in the U.S. But even then, Department of Homeland Security lawyer said if that case does happen, where El Salvador returns him through a port of entry in the U.S., DHS would detain and strip the legal protection that Abrego Garcia was granted in 2019, not to be deported in the first case.
In other news, Aaron, let me ask you about this meeting that the president is set to conduct with a negotiator from Japan today on the tariffs that he's implemented, which has led to turmoil in global markets. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, the first meeting, at least today, will be with Japan. Now, it's not listed yet in the official guidance, but there is a good block amount of free time that this meeting could be happening with President Trump, who said that he would attend this meeting, as well as Japan's economic minister, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, also expected to attend, as they will talk about the trade deals, the cost of military support, looking at the amount that Japan pays for housing U.S. troops in their country. And generally, Japan was one of the first allies to come to the negotiating table as soon as President Trump announced his tariff wars, or his, quote-unquote, reciprocal tariffs. So this is the first, at least concrete step towards a negotiation with an ally country as they look to move through these countries in that 90-day pause.
All right, Aaron, thank you very much. Reporting from the White House. We appreciate it.
Take care.